Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, this is a channel about Dungeons and Dragons, where we're currently jumping into a lot of lore videos and DM tips. If you need class guides and things like that, we do have that on the channel as well. Feel free to definitely check out our older videos. Big thank you to our Patreon supporters. We love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting us. What you do is absolutely amazing. And a big thank you to our good friends at Critical Failures, where we're part of a live stream game every Wednesday night. Check us out. The links to all of those is in the description. With all that out of the way, we're going to jump into this week's video. We're talking about the Prince of Undeath, Orcus. Orcus is one of the big three in the Abyss. He is the Prince of Undeath. He is caught within a war against the Demogorgon and Grazid. He is one of my favorite characters in D&D as far as like evil entities are. He is wicked. He has such a unique perspective on what he wants and how he aims to get that. He's definitely very different from what you would normally consider a demon prince to be, or like a demon lord to be, because usually they're chaotic evil entities that are just running around and randomly sowing chaos. But he's got a little bit more focused take on that, and it makes him really, really unique, and I really thoroughly enjoy him a lot. I think he's cool, and he's gross looking. So I'm definitely excited about this one. This is definitely one of my favorite characters. Orcus is that very specific looking demon. He is a mixture of a whole bunch of different things. He's kind of an amalgamation of a very bizarre sequence. So he has the head of a goat that's been desiccated. He has horns like that of a ram, goat legs, bat wings, and his body looks bloated and rotten. He has sores all over him. He's like massive. He's 15 to 20 feet tall. He's just so, like, it's disgusting to be around him. His tail, he has a long tail that's filled with spines that's poisonous. And just looking at him, he barely looks like he is alive. And currently, he's been killed twice and brought back. So there is a lot to kind of how he manages to do this, but it's really, really unique because he is not like the other deities or the other entities that are in the Abyss, because he's actually entered like the entry levels of divinity, which it manages to keep him alive. So we're gonna go into a little bit of what it's like how he was formed, and like kind of how a little bit of how the Abyss works. So Orcus was a regular mortal at one point in his life, on the prime material plane, which is kind of where Toril is now, and he was just some evil spellcaster. Now, naturally, how you act during your life depicts on where you go in your afterlife. That's how D&D works. So if you are good, bad, or evil, and you have to kind of worship a deity because they're tangible, they're real, you can see them and you interact with them, you would then go to their realm if you were devout to them and you died and you shared that moral alignment that they did. So he was clearly chaotic evil. And as a spellcaster, he definitely committed large amounts of atrocities. They say that he was most likely a cleric to some dark deity, which in a lot of sense kind of would mean Jurgle, which would be kind of my understanding. But, it's not specifically said. But that's probably one of the ancient dark deities that are out there. So when he died, his soul went to Psionia, which is a place in the Abyss. Now, when you die and get sent to the Abyss, you're not a humanoid. Your soul goes through this kind of metamorphosis and becomes this other entity. They call it a larva. And then as you kind of have to survive by absorbing in the Abyss long enough to evolve into something else. And all demons in the Abyss go through this. Now, a lot of demons eat larvae because it's the easiest and most nutritious and like empowering food there is. So it is very hard to make it from the larva out into something else. And then when you go from a larva, you go to an entity called a main, from a main to a dretch, from a dretch to a rudderkin, from a rudderkin to a vrock, from a vrock to a glabrezu, and from a glabrezu to a nelshin, and then eventually to the form of a baler. Now, baler is that level before almost like your true form, because balers all look like they got wings, they have like, you know, they have a very distinct look to them. But after you evolve from that is kind of when you get your distinctive form. That's what separates Orcus from like the other demon lords, is because they've evolved beyond that point and they developed who they actually are. But when Orcus went through this is at the almost like the dawn of everything. This is after the Abyss was created and when it was still under other demons that weren't created from this way. It's a long history on the creation of the Abyss. We'll cover it at some point, but just know that the demons that exist now in the Abyss weren't the original demons that created the Abyss. The demons that created the Abyss, there's only one left named vax'ildan, and he is rumored to still be alive somewhere in the Abyss, but that is the only real genuine threat to power as far as the hierarchy of the Abyss's demon lords. The Demogorgon is the ruler of the Abyss, and he only fears vax'ildan's return. Outside of that, Orcus, Demogorgon, and Grazit are the top three, and they are constantly fighting each other for power. Grazit is the newer one, but Orcus and the Demogorgon have been fighting each other for power since they overthrew vax'ildan in the beginning. Which sounds just like a lot of crazy mess, but that's kind of how the Abyss was founded in its newest iteration. With the Demogorgon on top, ruling over everything, and Orcus being mighty enough to be able to challenge that, and has been consistently since its creation. The important thing to note is being in the Abyss, it's not like you enter the Abyss and you just gain dominion over it. The Abyss itself is like alive, and it's spreading, and it's so fueled by evil that it corrupts those who don't belong there. And in order to be a ruler of that area, not only do you have to be strong enough to defeat all challengers within that realm, you have to be powerful enough to force that realm to be what you want it to be. To kind of like will it to change its shape to fit your ideal place. So it's not something that anybody can do. There are very few people that can come to the Abyss and actually make that happen. Orcus's realm is called Thanatos. It is the 333rd layer of the Abyss. It's a barren landscape dotted with shattered necropolis and hordes of undead that roam its surface. And Orcus ruled this place from the palace of Everlost in the Bolmion Desert in Oblivion's End. And the prince of the undead, which is one of the many titles to Orcus, previously court within the fortress city of Naratir, which sat within the frozen sea, fed by the river Styx. And then this later became a seat of power for another entity that actually came in and killed Orcus, named Kirasali, which we'll talk about in a little bit. One of the things that makes Orcus's realm sought after and valuable is because it's direct access to the river Styx. Now, the river Styx funnels all the undead into, it goes through parts of the nine hells and into the Abyss. So all the souls go through there. And one of the things that ended up making Orcus powerful is he has direct access to that. So if he wanted, he can just force some of those souls to go into his territory. And the reason why he does this we'll get into a little bit later. The story of Orcus is really unique, because once he grows from a baler into a higher version of a demon lord, and they assist in overtaking the abyss. What Orcus does is very, very unusual. See, Orcus hates life, but in such a particular fashion. He hates the fact that it's constantly moving and loud, and all these entities are talking and creating and laughing and making these sounds. His goal is to eradicate life. All of it. Undead, the dead, everything that isn't directly under his control, he wants eliminated. He wants perfect silence. He doesn't want a single sound to be emitted by anything. He doesn't want the winds to blow, the waves to crash, none of it. He wants the land to be dead. He wants the air to be without movement. He wants everything frozen in a perfect moment. And that's his goal. He's really unique, because though he is the prince of the undead, and he has a bunch of titles that are just really awesome. He's the Lord of the Undead, Lord of Undeath, Prince of Undeath, Blood Lord, Lord of Specters, Master of Vampires, the Goathorn Demon, Sovereign of Thanatos, Keeper of Everlost, Master of the Last Word, Mighty Orcus, and the Shadow That Was. He has been around forever and has accomplished a lot, but his main goal is to silence everything. Because of who he is and what he wants, he does play a very random game with the lives of everything, basically. Orcus is lazy a lot, and he would rather sit in the silence of his castle when he doesn't need to fight something, and he fights something because he can hear it, or it's causing noise to him. He has hordes of undead that he doesn't even really manage, because he doesn't really care about the undead. He just uses them as tools to fit whatever need he has, because he'd rather not be bothered. Now, when I mean that Orcus is kind of lazy, he's got this insane hunger to him. And very few things satiate that hunger. So, like, a lot of his followers and cultists and things like that will send him food and things like that, and he'll devour everything. And it's not, well, they say one of the things that helps satiate his hunger is actually drinking blood. And one of the other things that he does eat is he eats larvae from the abyss. So when souls come to the abyss and formulate into larvae, he gorges himself on it. That's why his body is so, like, overweight and obese, because he was constantly gorging himself on these souls. And that is a very powerful source in the abyss, which is one of the things that makes him as strong as he is. Another thing that makes him significantly different and stronger is because he's got a level of divinity to him. Now, the only way you can get divinity is if people send their divine energy to you. This is done through worship and through prayer, as it's a tangible energy source in D&D. So people pray to Orcus constantly. They pray to him for the secrets to life. They pray to him for lichdom. They pray to him to become vampires. They pray to him for power. It's very, very unique, because nobody ever really prays to any of the other demon lords, not to the level where he has divinity. Like, he's on the scope, like, he's on the, it's very weird because he's not listed as a full deity, and he can't grant spells like a cleric does. What he does to his followers is he funnels the negative energy plane into them. Now the negative energy plane is kind of where the weave is magic and where it comes from, and you pull the weave into your area or to your realm in order to be able to cast magic. The negative energy plane is kind of the same thing, but specifically for these darker magics, as it's kind of like corrosive and deadly to use, so, and evil in its heart. He can funnel that into his priests, or to his clerics, into whoever his followers are, and he does that like pretty oftenly. He has a very unique connection with that. So with his divinity, the scope of Orcus is significantly different as far as what he's like to other entities. He definitely stands out because even if you look at the Nine Hells, their counterpart in the Blood War, the only one that's of divinity level is Asmodeus. Everyone else isn't a deity. It's the same thing in the Abyss. Like, the Demogorgon is the ruler of the Abyss, but he is not really a god. But Orcus is there. You know, he's on the tip of actually that being. So what Orcus does is very different than what other demons do. Demons just kind of break out and sow chaos. They get summoned, they get pulled in, they find portals out, and they invade, and then they send their legions loose in the world. That's why we have Nulls, because of Yinigu, who's a demon lord. Like, he crosses into and releases them out into the real world, in the material plane. Orcus does something very different. Orcus is responsible for Vecna and a Sirak. Now, Vecna you've probably heard and probably know pretty well realistically, but if you're new to D&D, Vecna is a lich that stole divinity. He is nasty. There's a lot to him. We're going to cover him soon. And a Sirak is the boss, is the reason behind Tomb of Annihilation. He's another very powerful lich who was actually taught under Vecna. Both of them only gain their power through Orcus. Orcus taught them how to become liches. Every lich in existence has learned how to become a lich, has learned that ritual spell, and that spell comes from Orcus. Whether he purposely makes that happen with each individual one in existence, or maybe that has somebody wrote it down and passed that knowledge along. But liches and lichdom doesn't really exist without Orcus. Now, Orcus is a problem. His hunger and his need for gluttony doesn't just stop at food and satiating that. He does also want power. And at one point, this power caused something that's never really happened to other entities of the Demon Lord. He got into a conflict with Kirisali, which is a drow deity who falls under the pantheon under Lolth. Now, she is the drow goddess of vengeance. She is very, very, very much so that driving force of backstabbing and hatred that exists. She's got legions of banshees. She's really not an entity to be messing with. Drow deities are not something you want to bother. They are as cold, cunning, and strong as drow themselves. And something happened between Orcus and her. He made an attack against her, or he wanted her land. He wanted to conquer and push forward. And she also wanted the portfolio. She has the portfolio of necromancy and is part of the arcane and death domains, which is what Orcus has. Orcus has the portfolio of death, undeath, and necromancy. Because of that, clearly there's clashing between them. Now she manages to actually kill Orcus. And after she kills him, she takes over his domain. And she casts a spell. She finds a way to cast a spell to eliminate the name of Orcus so that way he can be forgotten. Problem is, even though it worked, he's a multi-dimensional being. He exists in many places, and the spell was not as strong as she believed it to be. So he still had worshippers, and he still managed to survive. Now, we're going to continue this on in a part 2 because this gets very long very quick, and we're going to talk about the resurrection of Orcus, what that means, and how he manages to curry favor with his acolytes. That's going to be part 2. That's going to come out next week. Big thank you if you made it this far into the video. Definitely hit that like and subscribe button. A big thank you to our Patreon supporters. We love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. What you do is absolutely amazing. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter, check out the link in the description, as well as our good friends Critical Failures, where we're part of a live stream game every Wednesday night. With all that said and done, thank you for giving a spooky kid a chance.